Welcome, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We expect some people to come in, and we've got some of our friends in the Senate that are currently working on bills and at other committees, and so we certainly don't want to hold up anybody in the interest of time. But we're going to start with Senator Beach and Senate Bill 85. I think what I've got in front of me is LC 287657S. And welcome to Government Affairs, Senator.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to present Senate Bill 85.
Hold on just a second, if you don't mind. You know, the clarity of voice was really something made exclusively for Hollywood, but to the people to my right that can't hear, I thought they needed that.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mr. What? Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for allowing me to bring Senate Bill 85 before you. Senate Bill 85 is intended to serve as a legislative clarification measure to address an internal inconsistency in the statutory definition of project in the Development Authorities law. So this is a economic development bill for the development authorities. The clarification is needed because the definition of project in the law contains a lengthy list of 13 specifically enumerated categories of allowable projects, as well as one single general provision granting broad discretion regarding permissible development authority projects. And here's the unfortunate thing about the coexistence of both the enumerated and the specific categories of the allowable projects and the general provision in the same definition. It has led to confusion and debate relating to the scope of development authority's statutory authority. Senate Bill 85 is not intended to change the types of projects that development authorities may undertake. Development authorities would be able to undertake any project that could have been carried out previously. Therefore, Senate Bill 85 would not change past practice. Rather, it would only constitute a linguistic modification to the definition of project and not a substantial one. Senate Bill 85 is good for jobs and economic development, and I'd ask for your favorable consideration, and we can go through line by line if you'd like, but I just wanted to kind of give you a brief overview, and I know, Mr. Chairman, you've come up with an amendment that I like, so we can talk about that also. And I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you so much. It is something that currently I think is Section N in code, and we just want to make sure that we understand what legislative intent is for the people that are questioning whether it's actually broadening to give you the system of checks and balances that we know our founding fathers wanted. I can draw your attention to line 64 on page 3 for members of the committee, which provides some fair measure of oversight. And I think after talking with the author of the bill, Senator Beach, I think we may actually amend that language there so he can clean up a little bit of my bad amendment.
Here's what I was suggesting, Mr. Chairman. In addition to the directors appointed by the governing body of the county or municipal corporation, one member of the governing body shall be selected to serve on such board of directors. Such person shall be selected in January, and then I would add this, to serve a 4-year term not to exceed their term of office. Because I think development authorities, I think you want to be on there for a little bit of more than a year so that you can really, be part of the team. And
a lot of those deals aren't put together in a short period of time, so it actually gives you a little historical perspective that is much needed.
I mean, I think,
when you
example,
look at this.
To your point, Mr. Chairman, I think the Mercedes deal went on for like 14, 15 months.
Right. So you don't want any latecomers coming in.
So if you would be amenable to that, I would appreciate that.
Did everybody understand how we're going to amend that? All right, great. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to ask for a motion.
So moved. Second.
Second. Any discussion? And now the amendment.
Okay, the amendment is on line 64.
Yeah.
In addition to the directors appointed by the governing body of the county or municipal corporation, one member of the governing body shall be selected to serve on such board of directors. Such person shall be selected in January to serve a 4-year term not to exceed their term of office.
All right.
And I'll get this to you.
Jeff,
Right.
Yes.
Correct.
If you can take that to Legislative Council so you can make the correction.
Thank you.
All right. So that's the First Amendment, which is the Brockway amendment. You got a motion on the amendment? Second. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign.
We've got a motion on the bill.
Okay.
We got a motion on the bill. We got a second amendment. Chairman Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have, now it's my understanding that the author
Yes.
is fully aware of this amendment. This is AM 281409. It's actually the exact language out of Senate Bill 210 by Senator Hill, and it simply adds lines 11 through 14 dealing with liens, and I would offer that as an amendment.
Thank you.
Any question of the author of that amendment? Everybody got it? Looking for a motion then?
Got a motion in a second.
Got a motion and a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hamilton amendment passes, and we got a motion to accept. Motion to pass by substitute as amended.
No, just by
Just by substitute. All right, those always get me. All right, got a motion. I hear a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Passes as substitute. Thank you. Make sure you get that language.
I will. Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you very much. I know you all have had a long day. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Who we got? We got a senator here. All right. Come on in and tell us about your bill a little bit. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be joined up here by Rob Fortson from McGuire Woods. Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
members...
but you want to increase the likelihood of the bill passing, correct? Go ahead.
Whatever we need to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. What you have before you is Senate Bill 59, and it's the outcome of an extensive process that began in the summer of 2013 with a study committee on public-private partnerships in Georgia. During this process, we sought and received feedback from a wide range of stakeholders. At the state level, the state property officer and GISFIC have been integral to the process, and we appreciate the time and attention they've given to this bill. At the local level, representatives of both GMA, ACCG have been thoughtful and helpful partners as well in developing this legislation. Also, we reached out to members of the private sector, architects, contractors, developers, engineers, just to name a few. We passed a bill out of the Senate last year, Senate Bill 255, and we've made some changes since then, and I can go over them. And we actually passed it out of this House committee, but it stayed in rules because we wanted to continue to work through some of the issues, specifically with the state, and that's what we did. And so we worked with Mr. Steve Stansel and Mr. Marvin Woodward all summer, and they've gotten us to where we are today, and so we're grateful to them for that. The main question that we're trying to answer is, so why do we need this bill? I haven't been here long, but not a day goes by that people in this building don't lament that we don't have enough money to spend for this or that. With health care costs rising and many other constraints in our government budgets, we need to find more innovative and creative ways to deliver facilities of a public need. Simply put, I believe that the need for public facilities at the state and local level will continue to outpace our available resources. Therefore, I further believe that the private sector may be able to provide the expertise, innovation, and financial resources to solve some of these problems and the needs for capital construction projects like parking decks, wastewater treatment plants, aquatic centers, and recreational facilities, etc. What this bill does is it establishes a framework and sequence of events at the state and local level that encourages the private sector to bring forward ideas, and in doing so provides a predictable, repeatable, and transparent procurement method that both parties, public and private, can rely on to help guide us through the process, while allowing and fostering competition and review along the way. We already have similar statutes on the books allowing for public-private partnerships for transportation and reservoirs, and this bill speaks specifically to vertical construction. Importantly, this bill becomes an optional tool for government and in no way circumvents or removes any existing state law governing construction procurement. Further, at the state level, it does nothing to change, enhance, or otherwise impact the borrowing or debt capacity of the state. We've heard from numerous private stakeholders that absent such a process that this bill will create, they would be far less likely to invest the time and resources necessary to submit a thoughtful, out-of-the-box proposal for a public works construction project. So in closing, while state agencies and cities and counties can engage in P3s, this bill formalizes an optional process that instructs both the public and private sectors on methods for achieving a successful partnership. I'm happy to go through some specifics in the bill, but that's...
All right, thank you. This bill was passed overwhelmingly last year. There was a few questions on the technicalities from, I think, the building authority. Specifically, I think those were cleaned up and an agreement. Do you know the specifics of that?
Yeah, some of them were. The bill is going to allow for unsolicited bids, and the state was concerned that they could get ensued with too many, and so we basically closed the window, which they agreed to, and that now they're going to be open and available for 2 months out of the year, which allows the private sector to have a predictable process and the public sector to know when these things are coming and to review them in that appropriate time frame. And that time frame is from May 1 through June 30th.
Correct. You'll find that on line 365. So I think those concerns, we're going to, is that you, Representative Kidd?
Yes, sir. Was that also on line 100?
Yeah, let's see. It probably was. No. On line 100, the local governments are going to get to determine that.
And they
So
have that, but
we
they,
estab-
and they determine the time frame, what can be 2 weeks or whatever.
Correct. We wanted to give them that flexibility, but the state, we already are going to go ahead and do a 2-month period.
So if the local government wanted to, cherry pick somebody, they could close the time frame off pretty quick if they wanted to.
Well, that's prevented in the bill. Let me find the line. But once the local government decides that they are going to receive a bid, competing proposals, line 178, they have to open it up, let people know, and allow for 90 days for a response.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions, author of the bill?
I don't have anybody's amendments. So most of the amendments are in the bill, and we were discussing whether to consider other amendments that there was no opposition to. But if no one on the committee has them, then I do not. Oh, and by the way, just a special thank you to Jeff Lanier, who has been through so many iterations on this bill. It's killed a lot of trees, Jeff. Appreciate your help. Do you have an amendment?
I don't have any with me.
Okay. I will say there were...
Was the author familiar with the amendment prior to coming to this meeting today?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That's what I was going to just let the committee know, that what passed the Senate, we have got some different amendments in here from the Senate to the House, and I wanted to just go over them very quickly.
Well, okay. I think what we're talking about now, was there any additional amendments that you said that was saved for this particular committee meeting? What was amended in the Senate is...
Well, no, we passed the Senate, and then we've made some amendments that are in this substitute, and I was going to mention those to you.
Give me just a second.
Yes, sir. In addition to the substitute, that's what's being debated right now. But I was going to tell you what's different in this substitute from what passed the Senate. We may. It's a good amendment. Just don't have it. while they're working that out, I wanted, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I was going to go through the.
Now you may.
Okay, thank you, sir. On lines 96 and 97, we made a slight change at the behest of GMA to provide for more flexibility with locals. It says contain in each of the factors identified in paragraph B of this code section. So since they're not required to follow the letter of the law in these guidelines that will be created once this group is put together.
They're not required to follow the letter of the law.
They're not required to follow the letter of the guidelines. So I know that sounds a little strange.
Is it the municipal association's intent not to follow the letter of the law? All right, just want to make sure I got that on the record.
That's not what I meant, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We're putting together a guidelines committee, and they're going to create a way forward, and the individual cities and counties need to stay in close proximity to those guidelines. And if they get away from those guidelines, that's what this says, that each of the factors identified in paragraph B of this code section should be honored or incorporated. But so that's all that amendment does. And then line 79, that at least 3 of these appointees shall reside outside of Metro Atlanta. That's a great amendment.
And how many appointees are there total?
10.
10. And so 30% of them is going to be outside of Metro Atlanta?
Yeah, that's at least. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't do more.
So if we said at least 3 shall come from the ARC, you'd be good with that?
I'm fine with that. I don't. Yeah, I mean,
why only 3? That's the whole thing. I love. Well, we put something in for you. We gave you 30%. Yeah, why not 9? Yeah,
I'm not
at least
one way or the other on that issue. So.
Thank you for that. That wasn't in there at all before. Thank you for that. Go ahead.
And then the final amendment was lines 469 through 471. We were concerned about the wording that had left the Senate might have been in conflict with the Constitution, and so we just cleared it up. It had to do with multi-year leases and that not being an accurate depiction of what debt is, if that makes sense. And that was from JustFix. So, again, nothing fundamental changed from there to here, but I thought you should be made aware of that.
Thank you so much. All right, any questions of the author of the bill before we get into any amendments? All right, then I will entertain a motion. Motion to pass. Do I hear a second? So got a second. Any discussion? Recognize Representative Mosby for amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 78, where we have C, one member of the business community with expertise in finance, that we would like that to read, one member of the business community who is a certified public accountant.
Okay.
Who is a licensed
certified public accountant, correct.
And where do you want that to go?
Right behind business community. One member of the business community.
license. So what you've got on page 78, if I understand, line 78, page 3 is after the word community, comma, who is a licensed certified
public accountant.
Certified public accountant. Pardon me?
That would be D.
Right.
It's line D.
It's be an addition.
CPA might not be in tune with the financial network system as somebody else.
Go. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we were okay with CPAs being added. We did not want them to replace any of these members.
So you would like
add another one and not lose a business.
Because the finance, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Okay. The idea there with expertise in finance, it was really supposed to be with expertise in construction and development finance, and that's what that is there for. And so replacing them with a certified public accountant doesn't help us in that.
And you actually wanted your own bill to say with expertise in what? Construction?
Well, we didn't want to be so specific, but that was the intent in finance of
Representative
projects.
Chairman Hamilton.
It's my understanding that the original amendment as drafted that we didn't get to committee actually was it continued that line, and so it was said one member of the business community with expertise in finance and who is a licensed certified public accountant. That was my understanding. Now, I may be wrong, but that's what it was representing to me. Sounds like the author may be wanting to add an additional one, a D, but again, this all happened last minute, so I'm simply carrying a message. So I'm going to defer to the author. I mean,
Yes.
Because the author is really, I know who wants this bill, and
that
so
would tighten the window between. That would really constrict, in this case, the lieutenant governor, because not everybody that's really good at the financing of these projects is also a CPA. So
might a suggestion be we pass it with the language that's in it, and until we get further clarification as to whether we need to add that, might be the
I
safest
think that would be wise,
posture.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know,
In other words, without the amendment.
I didn't know that the bill was supposed to do this on behalf of this person or that person or whatever the case may be. But our posture is that we have an amendment on the table from one of the members of the committee.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw it.
Okay. Our posture now is so that we don't have it. We've got the bill in front of us.
Motion and a second.
Motion and a second. Any other amendments? Any discussion? All right. Then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Representative Oliver, good afternoon.
I have a very narrow question, and I really don't believe that this impacts you, but you may be aware of a development authority of DeKalb County case versus State of Georgia in relation to referendums in counties and municipalities that have the option of creating a public safety and judicial facility authority. In any county, I'm concerned that this case is going to potentially apply to this bill in relation to this case. And forgive me for not knowing myself, and I do not know the answer to this, but I wanted to bring it to your attention to see if there was any consideration you felt like you needed to make, and if it may be appropriate for me to just give you the site 286 Georgia 36 in relation to some legislation that was passed and which required referendums for all bonding authority bonds, for all development authority bonds.
I appreciate that concern, and there's no requirement that a bond has to be the financing tool here. But if that was the methodology that the city or county used, then that case could affect, but this solution, the solutions that are available under this bill are far-reaching and not constrained to bonding.
I just offer the citation for your consideration,
Thank you.
and you tell me if it applies, because I am not certain.
Thank you so much, Representative Oliver. So we've got a motion on the table and a second as it relates to pass for LC 287647S. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Senator Dugan, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This one's a little bit more complicated than the P3 measure that you just listened to. We're looking at Senate Bill 104. What Senate Bill 104 does is remove the Commissioner of Insurance from the State Depository Board at the Commissioner of Insurance's request. Subject to your questions.
He believes in smaller government, and he starts with himself. All right, any questions of the author of the bill, Senate Bill 104? What is the pleasure of the committee? Move to pass. Got a second. Any discussion? Great. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign. That was easy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Who is your House sponsor?
Would be Which point you said, are you sure?
Yeah, well, I want to make sure you try to get it passed. I saw him over there. Thank you. All right, and finally, Senate Bill 127, which is a bill with things that this committee has passed out before, and we've just given it a little love on the House side, and Representative Fleming is going to take it from there.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The majority of the bill you have in front of you, you have seen before, and then there's one final section I'll let Chairman Hamilton explain. But beginning with section 2, 3, 4, and 5, this is the bill that was passed out of this committee unanimously and overwhelmingly on the floor of the House. It deals with basically 4 things. It deals with elections. The original portion of the bill is in section 4, where, as we all know, there was a significant problem at the Ethics Commission with local governments filing electronically, the county commissioners and the city councilmen. There was a Georgia state audit that found a need for several changes, and this portion of the bill is a reaction to that. We're basically giving the Ethics Commission the ability to allow some of these fines that were placed upon local officials when they had trouble filing electronically to be relieved. Like I said, we've debated that, Mr. Chairman, and talked about that before. Section 5 of the bill, I'll just move on, is another portion that we've already passed. As we all know, right now, House and Senate caucuses can give unlimited amount of campaign donations to anyone they want to, as long as they send it to their party, whether it be Democrat or Republican, and then back down to the candidate. This simply does away with that middleman and allows the caucuses to give directly to the candidates rather than going up to the party and then back down. If we'll go back to section 2 of the bill, section 2 of the bill also that was passed unanimously by this committee is the portion that says basically once we give these local officials the chance to clear up their problems with the Ethics Commission, if they don't have their fines paid up, you can't run for office. Pretty much, if you don't have it straight with the Ethics Commission, you can't run. And then that's going to apply to everybody in the state, not just the local officials, but to us also. The final section, which was passed by the committee, is in section 3, which some people have referred to as the independent expenditure groups or the dark money groups. These are the entities that come into Georgia and spend as much money as they want to, but they do not have to show who the donors are, and they do not have to show where they spend the money. This would simply make these dark money groups follow the same rules that you and I do. They can still spend the money on whoever they want to, however they want to. They simply have to report it to the commission, where they got it from and where they spend it. Mr. Chairman, those are the portions of the bill that this committee has already passed. We simply took that House bill and subbed it into the Senate bill. If you want, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Hamilton, to proceed with the first section of the bill and then take questions, or however you want to move ahead with it.
Thank you so much. I think just so everybody knows, we passed the bill, sent it over to them. They made some modifications. We're taking theirs and making some modifications, and the chairman fully expects that ultimately this will go to conference and we'll try to resolve those differences. But if Chairman Hamilton would be kind enough to explain section 1.
Sure. This is basically House Bill 194. It deals with early voting, passed out of this committee. And basically what it does is establishes 11 days that are required, and that are the 2 business weeks prior to the election. Those 5 days, 1 week, 5 days the following week, business hours. It also establishes the Saturday between those 2 weeks, 9 to 4 on that Saturday, and then it makes a option of choosing either 12 to 4 on that Sunday following the mandatory Saturday vote, or the 9 to 1 Saturday, which is the kickoff of the early voting time. The other provision in there is that any of these options that are exercised, they must be exercised prior to the 45-day early voting, so that there's no confusion. And this deals with conformity around the state, as well as addressing some cost issues in some of the smaller communities. I might add that it still does nothing to change the absentee ballot process, which allows people 180 days prior to the election to request a absentee ballot, and then those absentee ballots can still be turned in up to 45 days prior to the election day. And that's basically what the bill does.
Thank you, Chairman Hamilton. Representative Oliver.
Did the Senate also introduce an early voting bill similar to 194?
I really don't know.
And after 194 left this committee, did you ever ask that it be put on the rules calendar for the day?
I ask for it every single day.
Okay, and the rules calendar chose not to move forward?
That's correct.
Okay, just I didn't remember exactly that.
Yeah. No, and matter of fact, the rules chairman made a comment about the fact that I asked for it every single day.
Okay.
Thank you for the question, Representative Kidd.
What this basically does on Section 1, it changes the law to mandate that everybody have either a Saturday or a Sunday voting.
At the local discretion is my understanding.
It mandates one Saturday, the Saturday that's currently being utilized from 9 to 4, that Saturday in between, and then it gives the option of choosing either one or the other. It's not both, and it's not zero. You choose either the Saturday prior to the beginning of the early voting period or the Sunday after the mandatory Saturday. So it's up to that local community. And when we initially did this, we heard from communities that just had a religious concern over mandating on Sunday. And so that's when we came back and said for those that want to do Sunday, they can do that. And for those that do not want to do Sunday, then they can choose and it's up to the local election board. The only requirement, again, we put in there is that decision has to be made prior to the 45 days to the election so that there's time to make the necessary preparation.
That, in essence, is a new part that will force the local people to have an additional election day either on a Saturday or a Sunday that they're currently not having.
There are currently, one of the confusing points was once Sunday voting started, or Saturday and Sunday voting, then there was a discrepancy in what the law, and so we've already have people that are currently exercising the ability to vote on a Sunday. And so because of the confusion that was being created from community to community, we said we will make it as uniform as we possibly can, and that was when we did that, yes.
Thank you, Representative Kidd. Representative Brockway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Looking at the bill as it passed the Senate, it looks like, correct me, Representative Fleming, this is maybe the Senate version of your bill, your House Bill 370, the portion that would have helped deal with the issue that arose with local elected officials and fines for late filing and so forth. So. Just to understand what's going on, that your version of House Bill 370 is continuing to move forward in the Senate.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
And one of
what we did is we subbed in the House passed version into this bill as
yes.
they put the Senate passed version into our bill.
Great.
That makes sense.
And one other quick question, any chance of talking you into striking Section 5? That's my least favorite part of this bill, where we're allowing House caucuses to...
No, I'm going to stick with what the House
sir.
overwhelmingly passed. They've already voted on it once.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, though, for that suggestion. Okay, we've got a...
Thank you for slamming it down.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's free. All right. What is the pleasure of the committee to keep the process moving forward? You got a motion to pass? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign. No. Thank you. The substitute to Senate Bill 127 passes Governmental Affairs. Anybody got any other business? We did good, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. We're adjourned.